that, and a little bit about Varnashram. But we'll take turns reading 28 through 35, and then we'll start. Living entities are superior to, and among them, living entities who display life symptoms are better. Animals that would develop consciousness are better than them, and better still are those who have developed sense perception. We didn't do the verses, you know, it's 29.
Which one are we on?
29.
Among the living entities who have developed sense perception, those who have developed the sense of taste are better than those who have developed only the sense of touch. Better than them are those who have developed the sense of smell, the sense of hearing.
Better than those living entities who can perceive sound are those who can distinguish between one form and another. Better than them are those who have developed upper and lower sets of teeth. And better still are those who have many legs. Better than them are the quadrupeds, and better still are the human beings.
Among human beings, the society which is divided according to quality and work is best. And in that society, the intelligent men who are designated as Brahmanas are best. Among the Brahmanas, one who has studied the Vedas is the best. And among the Brahmanas who have studied the Vedas, one who knows the actual purport of the Veda is the best.
Better than the Brahmana who knows the purpose of the Vedas is he who can dissipate all doubts, and better than him is one who strictly follows the Brahminical principles. Better than him is one who is liberated from all material contamination, and better than them is a pure devotee who executes devotional service without expectation of reward.
Therefore, I do not find a greater person than he who has no interest outside of mine, he who therefore engages and dedicates all his activities in all his life, everything, unto me without cessation.
Such a perfect devotee offers respect to every living entity because he is under the firm conviction that the Supreme Person of Godhead has entered the body of every living entity as a super soul or control.
One more.
My dear mother, O daughter of Manu, a devotee who applies the science of devotional service and mystic yoga in this way can achieve the abode of the Supreme Person simply by that devotional service.
Yes, it's described as if the mystic yoga process is done properly. It's non-different from bhakti yoga. Also, karma yoga in the Bhagavad Gita is spoken about that way. It's interesting because people have translated the Bhagavad Gita in different ways at different times for different purposes. Like at one time, one of the Acharya's commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita was specifically, trying to defeat the Mayavadis. Prabhupada did a fair amount of that too. But Prabhupada, he called jnana, transcendental knowledge, and karma, action in Krishna consciousness. So everything to him was bhakti yoga. He translated everything in the Bhagavad Gita as bhakti yoga. So yeah, the title of this class is spiritual equal, materially different. We'll maybe get into a little bit of that when we get to the purport of verse 28. But right now I want to go to text 29 on the verse and purport. If somebody would like to read. The purport is fairly short. No, we'll do the Sanskrit for 28 when and if we get to that.
Just read the purport.
Just read the translation and the purport. Yeah.
Translation. Among the living entities who have developed sense perception,
Those who have developed are better than those who have developed only the sense of touch. Better than them are those who have developed the sense of smell. And better still are those who have developed the sense of hearing. Purport. Although Westerners accept that Darwin first expounded the doctrine of evolution, the science of anthropology is not new. The development of the evolutionary process was known long before the Bhagavatam, which was written 5,000 years ago. There are records of the statements of Kapila Muni, who was present almost in the beginning of the creation. This knowledge has existed since the Vedic time. All these sequences are disclosed in Vedic literature. The theory of gradual evolution or anthropology is not due to Vedas.
I guess you stop there. That's probably enough. It says the records of statements of Kapila Muni was present almost at the beginning of creation. This has come up several times within the past, or a couple of times at least in the past several classes. Our acharyas say that the lifetime of Lord Brahma is 311 trillion, 40 billion years, about which half his life's about half over. So Kapila Deva was speaking around 150 trillion years ago. And if I'm correct, that's about the same age that the material scientists think the universe is, although I can't understand how they could possibly know that, unless they went to the Vedas. But yeah, so this is eternal. It's not that like within the past 50 years this has all become irrelevant and inapplicable to us. But as far as Darwinism, it's based on natural selection and mutation, and there's really absolutely no evidence. To tell a story of evolution, you have to tell a story with a series of gradual consecutive changes, always some selective advantage. The evidence just isn't there. To have an eyeball, first you have to have an eye socket. What's the selective advantage of that? There is none. They say sometimes it happens really fast, but there's no evidence of that either. A whole organ all of a sudden popping up, evolving, there's no evidence of that. Yeah, not only is there no evidence not only do they not have a missing link within the human species, there's not a missing link in any species. There's not a single example of one species of life mutating to the other. Less than 20 years ago, a little less than 20 years ago, was the 150th anniversary of Darwin's Origin of Species. And there was an article in there saying that if Darwin were alive today, he would see his theory proven. So they gave an example of a species of fish and an example of a species of bird. But all it was slight mutation within species, and then after a few generations, it just snaps back. And they're saying that's evidence of. So I don't know how many legs a fruit fly has. Let's say they have 6. You can breed them to have 4. You can breed them to have 8. Or a few generations later, they just pop back to the original 6 or whatever prototype. Even things that mutate very easily, like viruses. The flu virus is very mutable, but it's still influenza. Similarly, the COVID virus is also very mutable, but it's still the coronavirus. There's not a single example of one species of life mutating to another. There's been apes, there's been men, there's been 8 men, they've all existed simultaneously. They found Homo sapiens as old as any Neanderthal or Java or whatever the rest of them are. And even in the lower stratus where most of the life is primitive, they found Homo sapiens of the same age. Yeah, there's not a single example of one species of life mutating to another. And if somebody knows of one or can find one, let me know and I'll look into it. But I talked to a professor who taught Sanskrit at UF for a while, and he says, I'm right, there's one species of life mutating to another. And as far as I know, in most schools and colleges, they're still teaching it like it's fact. So, Yeah, so I think that might be about all I have to say on that. We can go on to, I think text 31, translation and purport.
21?
31. Translation and purport, yeah. This is prose, short purport as well.
Among human beings, the society which is divided according to quality and work is best. And in that society, the intelligent men who are designated as brahmanas are best. Among the brahmanas, one who has studied the Vedas is the best. And among the brahmanas who have studied the Vedas, one who knows the actual purport of the Veda is best. Purport. The system of 4 classifications in human society according to quality and work is very scientific. The system of brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas, and shudras has now become vitiated.
Which means invalid. I looked it up. It means invalid. Something like
As the present caste system in India. But it appears that the system has been current a very long time, since it is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and Bhagavad. Unless there is such a division of the social orders in human society, including the intelligent class, the martial class, the mercantile class, and the laborer class, there is always confusion as to who is to work for what purpose. A person trained to the stage of understanding the absolute truth is a brahmana, and when such a brahmana is Vedadya, he understands the purpose of the Veda. The purpose of the Veda is to understand the absolute. When he understands the absolute truth in 3 phases, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, and who understands the term Bhagavan to mean the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is considered to be the best of the Brahmanas or a Vaishnava.
Okay. Yeah, there's schisms of Christianity that have a very similar concept of it originated in the Vedas. I don't know how many of them who propound this philosophy will admit that or even know that. And it originally came from the Vedas, but it's fatally flawed for the same reason that the modern day Hindu caste system is fatally flawed, because it's based entirely on birth and not on qualification. It doesn't matter what the color of your eyes are, the color of your skin, the color of your hair, even your IQ. Behavior is much more important, and according to quality and work. A lot of people with high IQs have absolutely no idea how to behave. And a lot of them misuse their high intelligence for nefarious purposes. There's 2 books. One just came out. There's a book put out by the BBT that was out of print for decades, that in the past few years has come back in print, called Speaking About Varnashram. Things Prabhupada said about Varnashram. And there's another book that just came out. I haven't read yet. I read the first one. One that just came out is called 4 Simple Steps to Reestablishing Varnashram. So, Prabhupada said his books would be the law books for mankind for 10,000 years. So if the Christians want to know the original Aryan culture, the true Aryan culture, the Aryan culture as it is, they should read Prabhupada's books, and that would also probably help them become better Christians. In one of the purports in the 2nd canto, Prabhupada states that the Vedic monarchy was not an autocratic monarchy. An autocrat is the leader of an autocracy, and an autocracy is a government where one person has complete control. The Vedic monarchy was not like that. He had advisors from the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, and he listened to them. And if he went bad or was a bad leader, the Brahmins had ways to dispose of him. Yes, so I've spent almost 30 years since I was in Mayapur, but the same piece of land that Prabhupada bought for the temple of the Vedic planetarium, Bhakti Vinod years earlier saw a vision. I've been to Bhakti Vinod's house. I believe he was looking at his house over the same plot of land Prabhupada bought. But at any rate, he had a vision of a magnificent temple with sannyasis from all over the world. Sannyasis from Russia, sannyasis from China, sannyasis from America, sannyasis from Europe, sannyasis from Africa, South America. And Prabhupada said, what the United Nations has failed to accomplish, we shall accomplish in Mayapur. There's more, I can't think. Yeah, we have every race, color, creed, nationality, caste, political persuasion all over the world. Even here at Krishna House, we have such a diverse view of different political policies. But we all come to Bhagavatam class. We're the real United Nations, and yeah, this is eternal. This information. Lord Chaitanya said the Bhagavatam was spotless Purana. So at least 500 years ago, the Bhagavatam was still uncorrupted. So yeah, that might be about all I have to say. If there's any comments or questions, and if China.
Hare Krishna. So yeah, this the verses we read kind of talk about varnashram system,
Right.
and I was wondering, sometimes we're placed in services that are, more of one ashram, one varna than another. More like maybe studious, intellectual, maybe some is more like hands-on, active. How do we keep that open-mindedness in service to just be kind of like flexible and kind of be Krishna's instruments? Because, you can easily say, oh, well, I'm more brahminically inclined, but then the service I need is like,
Well, in the immediate service you're doing, I guess, can be, especially for Vaishnava, can be very variegated, but hopefully you would not wind up eventually in occupation or profession or service or whatever that is actually your nature, more your nature. Nardamuni.
Hare Krishna. Gopal, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good class. So I have a comment and a question.
All right.
The comment is on what I was just saying.
All right.
I was in Gopal this summer, and I was doing gardening with Nitai Chan, and he would just say things all the time, like, oh, we're going to war against these weeds, and like, and like, there's all these like battle terms for like gardening.
Okay.
And I think
enthusiastic.
we kind of realize that varnashram maybe as more of an element of how you approach things, necessarily what the service is.
Okay, that's a good point.
I think you can do gardening as a Vaishnava or a Kshatriya or a Brahmin, And so I think it's kind of just like more of like a nature kind of thing.
Yeah, Kalakanta said a very similar thing many times, that a Vaishnava can act in any varna or ashram.
Yeah, and I like the Vaishnavas.
Also, a Vaishnava from any caste can give class also.
Yeah.
Which you had a question also?
Yeah, the question was use the word Aryan, and I think Prabhupada say his purport service sometimes.
Right.
But I don't really know what it means.
Well,
the only thing I know about Aryan prior to Krishna consciousness was Hitler. So.
Yeah, well, Aryan means varnashram. It actually, Hitler, this is what I'm saying, Hitler took it from the Vedas. The swastika is a Vedic symbol. I think Hitler turned it around. It means something like, I looked it up, it means something like beginning, or I don't know. But anyways, it's a Vedic symbol. Hitler got his manifesto straight from the Vedas, only he perverted it. Perverted is the perfect word. Perverted means either twisted or crooked or performing an activity not in the way it was intended to be performed. It's the perfect word. Some devotees say it's kind of heavy, but the way Prabhupada uses it is perfect. So our Aryan is Varnashram. And I've seen some of this white supremacist literature. It's straight out of the Vedas, but it's completely flawed because it's based entirely on birth, not on qualifications. Oh, we're the Aryan race. There's a whole history, and some of it's been rewritten. I don't know, but when the British first invaded India, and they started to learn Sanskrit and read Sanskrit, you realized that it was a much older language than the Greco-Roman and Latin that the Western cultures came out of. So Indians aren't white, and so they came up with this whole hypothesis, which is really trying to rewrite history, that the Europeans must have invaded India at some point, and they left behind this great culture. If we look at the Greco-Roman cultures from what the Western civilization came from, it's obviously remnants of Vedic culture. They had a caste system. They believed this was the fourth and most degraded age in a cycle of 4 ages. It's obvious remnants of the Vedic culture. So the Bible's been abused and misused and weaponized all through its history. Our Christian brothers, if they want to be true Christians, they should see try to find out what Christ really taught, not some we're superior race. We're just the opposite of that. Varnashram, the real Varnashram, the true Aryan, the original Aryan, the Aryan as it is based on qualification. It has nothing to do with birth. It's been completely corrupted and it's coming out. They're trying to reestablish it as worldwide, with Christian white nationalism or whatever. And they're just wrong. Anybody else? Adishan?
Thank you, Gopal Prabhu. What was the topic of the class again?
The topic is spiritually equal, materially different.
When you were speaking on this topic, I remembered about Siddhanta Maharaj's description of different scriptures of different gurus and how they're characterized. He says there are scriptures on more ignorance. And you can identify them by them in one form or the other justifying violence.
Yeah, of course.
They say, okay, there'll be still some restrictions. They'll say, okay, you can eat this animal, but don't eat this animal. But it will justify one way or the other. And then the Shastras, in the word passion, the main idea will be divide and conquer, or friend and enemy. And the Shastra, in the word goodness, just at the topic of this class is it will teach one single source of one nature of everything. The spirit is behind it. So when Hitler, not in the word of goodness, he goes and exploits the Shastra for the word of goodness. He takes it as divide and conquer, friend and enemy, plus I'm going to justify violence. So that's completely perverted version. So that's
okay. Thank you. I forget your name.
That's okay. Hare Krishna. I'm Anasuya.
Anasuya, okay.
Thanks, Gopal, for this class.
You're
I
welcome.
was taking a lot of notes. I wondered, I thought Narada's point was really nice, and I wondered maybe if you could comment a little bit about this system of varnashram and how it's actually created to support each other. Actually, the Kshatriyas are there so that the Brahmanas can be engaged in their service without being disturbed. And the Vaishyas are creating healthy businesses for the Shudras to be engaged in so that they're not disturbed also, because they also have service to Krishna.
and they're able to create businesses that are successful, and then that helps support the Kshatriyas and Brahmanas.
Right.
And so I was just wondering if you could speak a little on, because I tried looking up this book, this 4 steps of reestablishing.
It's on Amazon. Both the books are
Yeah.
on Amazon.
And I was wondering if you could speak a little on how can we help do that as we're moving forward in
Well,
our journey?
thank you for bringing that up, because that's a very important point that I completely left out. The solution is in the 7th canto, chapter 2, verse 11, towards the end of the purport. Prabhupada says, by spreading the Sankirtan movement, Brahminical culture and Kshatriya government will automatically be revived, and the people will be extremely happy. So how do we spread the Sankirtan movement? By kirtan and distributing prasadam, which is what we do here, and which ISKCON has been doing since the early days of ISKCON all over the world. Even in the 80s, before the fall of the Iron Curtain, there were devotees in prison and mental institutions, but there were still also devotees riding bikes with buckets full of prasadam up and down the front lines, giving prasadam to both sides. So, distributing prasadam and kirtan is how we bring the change about. It changes the heart. It's not some artificial attempt to abolish something. Anything else? Wait, I'm sorry.
In the verse, it's 20. Did we read it?
Yeah, we did.
He said that better than him is one who is liberated from all material contamination.
What's the verse? That's different translation than I have.
Oh, no, it's in the middle. It's in the middle of.
Oh, okay. What is it?
Better than him is
Oh, I
one who is
see.
liberated from all material contamination.
Right.
And then towards the end it says, and better than him is a pure devotee. What's the difference? One who is liberated from material contamination.
Well,
A pure devotee.
Liberation is often, when the word liberation is often used, it means moksha, which is impersonal liberation. And lots of Brahmins are impersonalists. But it's also a product of Namabhas, is liberation and freedom from sinful reactions, but that's not a pure devotee. A pure devotee just wants what Krishna wants. Now go back to the spiritual world. If it will increase his devotional service, if it's good for devotional service. If not, he has no desire even to go back to the spiritual world. So there is a difference.
So desiring liberation or wanting to go back to God will be impediment.
Not necessarily, no. Prabhupada emphasized we should try to go back to God in this lifetime. Prabhupada emphasized that over and over again. So it's kind of like both things are there. Some people, what Krishna wants. A pure devotee does what Krishna wants. If Krishna wants to take him back to the spiritual world, he'll go back to the spiritual world. But if it's gonna hamper his service, he has no desire.
I have one more, if you don't mind.
Right.
Did we read 33?
I think so.
At the end of 33, verse 33 says that he engages and dedicates all his activities and all his life, everything unto me without cessation. This word without cessation, does that mean sometimes I misunderstand what that really means.
Can I hear you?
Yeah, what does that really mean?
What was that again?
Without cessation. Does that mean that I never take break? Does that mean I never sleep? Does that mean
You're patient and determined. You're patient and determined. Maybe there may be breaks, I guess.
so without cessation Remain,
Just don't give up.
one is patient and determined.
Yeah.
No, I think Ronald has
Oh, okay, Ronald.
Yeah, I think the word cessation is more referring to like without hesitation.
Okay.
Non-flinching.
Not non what?
Being like non-flinching.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. Patient and
To have
determined.
like that determination.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
simple
Nicely.
devotion.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Soon as you give it,
I take on the word without cessation, sleeping, and taking breaks are all part of you do it for Krishna. It's all connected to Krishna.
Right, exactly.
None of the activities a devotee will see separate from Krishna or
Exactly.
serving Krishna.
Right, yeah, thank you. Susan Lily.
I'm looking at the Sanskrit word meaning nirantara, word without cessation.
Okay.
It's referring to eternally or always.
Hmm.
So
Well,
it's,
Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, is all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. And son of Peter. Yeah, well, everybody, a pure devotee sees every living entity as a better servant of Krishna than he is. Even if they're in Maya, they're serving Maya so nicely. They're a better devotee than I am. Was that all? I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
yeah, I was just saying that, there was another verse in the Bhagavatam that describes how it's described in Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj says this, that, the devotee, his consciousness becomes detached to bodily actions. So whether you're doing whatever, his consciousness is always in the eternal realm. So that, in that sense, is without cessation. But on the outward sense, he's still doing everything else. So, in that distinction.
Brandon?
Yeah, I
Thank you,
was just gonna say, I
Cynthia.
looked it up and it says the act of stopping, so
Oh,
basically just the, stop.
cessation.
So it says that it comes to an end, that's what cessation means, so without cessation means without coming to an end.
I see, okay, yeah, great. Anything else for you?
I have a question with a practical application of Varnashram system.
All right.
How do I know? My Vaishya, how am I to
Yeah, that's a good.
find the path? Because it's,
I asked my spiritual master that once.
Yeah.
You know what he said? Wash the floor. Go.
because I've got all the boys in the good chakras, so how do we,
I don't know.
how does,
Maybe one of these books that are coming out could help answer some of the questions better than I can. There are things Prabhupada. The first book is all things Prabhupada said on Varnashram, and he said in there he was not for an autocratic government. And the second book I haven't read it yet, but it's based on his teachings. I think it's from him. I can't guarantee that because I haven't read it yet. But those two books, speaking about Varnashram, which is directly words Prabhupada said on Varnashram, and the second one is Four Simple Truths, 4 simple steps to reestablishing. 4 simple steps to reestablishing Varnashram, and they're both available on Amazon.
I think Kunti has more to say because she just took the course.
Oh, okay. Oh.
I meant to say,
Is it on?
Yeah, it's on. I mean, because, I did read the book, so like I'm a little passionate about it.
Yeah. Okay.
but actually, if you read the book, it literally tells you how to find out what your varna is.
Oh, okay.
But if you
It's been a while
don't
since I read it. Yeah.
it's like it's so cool. Like it tells you, okay, what do you value? Like what do you give importance to in your life? What makes you feel fulfilled? And then by answering these questions, you figure out, oh, okay, here's your dharma. Like here's what you're naturally inclined to do and offer based on your psychological
Physical, yeah.
nature. It's really, really interesting, and then it explains also, which is something you guys touched a little bit on earlier, like what happens if you do a varna that is not yours?
Okay.
It actually look good unless you're transcendental,
Mhm.
because different varna requires different like
Yeah.
psychology, and then if you apply the psychology of the kshatriya to a brahmana service, then they actually pervert the service,
Sure.
and vice versa, and it explains exactly how that happens. And I've seen it like with my own eyes in our societies, and it's like, I don't know. Like I understand the principle, she's like, I understand the principle, like, oh, we're Vaishnavas, we're devotees, we can do whatever, but we're not all that advanced, you know, is what I think. Even though, and it says in the book too, like whatever you do, you can't escape your nature. So even if you try to do something different than what's according to your nature, you're gonna bring in your nature into it.
Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, what will repression accomplish? But it doesn't mean, we shouldn't follow the four regular principles. We should repress, because those are repressive. No, what it meant was, if Arjuna refused to fight, he'd go out to the woods and he'd start thinking, oh, Dhritarashtra did this, Drona did this, and he'd get all angry and he'd come back and fight anyways, because he was a Kshatriya. That was his nature.
I think a good example of this is Nagar Prabhu mentioned that devotee can get an Nagar because they declared war on the weeds.
Thank you. Anything else?
Well, I was just gonna say, because not everyone's necessarily gonna be inclined to read this thick book.
Sure.
It's this thick. But usually when you try different things, you end up figuring out what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah, I'm not. There was an example I was thinking of. I can't think of it right now. Of course, there's the example of from Rita, who was a Brahmin, who later acted as a Kshatriya, and Parshurama was a Brahmin, who later acted as a Kshatriya, and Bishop Rita was a Kshatriya, who later on acted as a Brahmin. But that wasn't the example I was thinking of. There was, I can't think right now, maybe it'll come to you. Kendini?
And so for those who don't want to read the book, Hari or Harikesh made an app for the VI, and anybody who wants to test themselves, it's the same.
Okay.
The same idea. Is
Right.
if you have questions, according how you answer those questions, it will give you a result telling you what type of dharma you have. So it's in the VI for now because it's not public. So you come to the VI and you can.
Oh, I see.
We're coming tomorrow.
Okay, please.
Yeah, it's also been described that in this age, we're all kind of like mutts anyways.
Yeah, like you just said, in this age, we're all kind of like mice. We're born from sudras, and we're trained like sudras. And once we're done with our training, we work like sudras. So Brahmana made us Brahmana.
Our leaders are
Prabhupada
sudras.
gave us Brahmana training. As far as being Kshatriya
Right.
in society, where Kshatriyas are even like, that's like something that's even like applicable. It isn't, not in our society.
Well, when we come to ISKCON, we have a good idea of what it is to be a Brahmin. And we also have a good idea of what it's like to be a Vaishya, taking care of cows or making money. And we have a good idea of what it's like to be a Sudra. We don't have a good idea of what it's like to be a Kshatriya. But there are devotees who are trying to solve this dilemma, and it's certainly very pertinent to what's going on in our world. Adishan's next, then you, Bunny.
One good advice about Samurai gives, he says, just engage yourself in devotional service, and devotees will see what your strong sides, and they will be accordingly.
I was kind of thinking, somebody else probably.
Because we have blind spots.
Yeah.
But some will tell us, like, for example, somebody's lazy, no problem. It's like,
Right.
I just want to say really quick, because the subject of anthropology was brought up.
All right.
There's a book called The Big Bang and the Sages, written by Siddhartha Chopra and Madhavendra Puridas. And it talks about how modern science today is coming up with the same timeline and numbers that the Vedas came up with, like the age of the sun, the age of the earth. When did
Some things are the same, some things aren't.
Yeah, he talks about a lot of things, and it's
No,
really cool how things are lined up.
Yeah, well, Darwin was a priest. Most of the scientists back then were, and they were trying to understand God's creation, and prove it, and and so the scientists. So, but with Darwin and with Freud and with some big philosopher, I don't know which one, science became an alternative to religion. So the thing wrong with the Western science and philosophy, that they should be trying to prove there is a God instead of trying to prove there isn't.
I was thinking on this topic of, what's my Varna?
Maybe we better stop pretty soon.
How to figure it out. I was just thinking that this question really encourages the relationship with Shiksha Gurus.
Oh, right.
You can really take shelter of some senior devotee and engage in some open-hearted conversations.
True.
Because sometimes we're not really so inclined to tell ourselves the truth when we take one of these little quizzes or something.
Yeah.
We already know what we want it to be. And so we answer the questions accordingly. If you're intelligent in the ego,
like those aptitude
then
tests.
you just say, well, what I want to be is a businessman, so I'm going to answer all these questions that I'm organized by, even though I know it's not true. And so I was thinking, though, that in our relationship with Diksha Guru, sometimes this isn't so possible to have these very long, extended conversations that go on for hours and hours, and so it encourages the relationship of Shiksha and taking shelter.
That's definitely an issue with taking initiation from some, super big guru. Is unless you're doing some really big service, they don't even know who you are. So there should be more gurus with less disciples. So you better be the last.
Rick was coming inside.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
Rick was coming.
All right.
So I was thinking, just as the three modes of material nature can actually create combinations of infinite varieties of phenomena in this world. There's always a mix. It's not like I am just in the mode of goodness, so therefore I am not touched by the other ones. So with Varnas, it's also a study of human propensity. There's always that principle, but it doesn't, there's as many varieties of everyone's propensities as there are people. Everybody, every soul is different. And it's just it's not from a university graduate trying to figure out how they are going to go about their life. It's just a choice that you have to make and commit to it, and hopefully, you consult the wise to find something that's suitable for you. And we're really not in a position to judge somebody else because we're not them. We just don't know. And I think in the Vedic process, how it goes is when children are very young, they are taken to, their astrology first followed for. The astrology itself.
The spiritual master tells them,
And then, it's figured out, so they are trained in a specific profession, and that evolves into our natural
Actually, Socrates had a very similar thing. Another example of how it's obviously reminiscent of Vedic culture. He said, why waste your time training, a warrior to be an intellectual? So it was trying to be determined at a very young age, and whatever, and then you started that obvious remnants of Vedic culture. I think the Greeks and the Romans were non-Vedic and meat eaters who were driven out of India. I think that's who they were by Parashuram. Europeans were similarly Chakras who were driven out of India by Parashuram. Did you read that?
On the discussion of Varna and Ashrama, I heard that in order to have this effective Varna manifest in our life according to our nature and proclivity, Ashrama is actually very important too. Because they say what is a good vocation without good character?
So that's
why ashram comes in place in terms of character development and menial services, just like in any corporation or even military service. You don't come and you don't get the gun right away. First, you develop some,
some police officers, supposedly.
You develop good character. You develop what's actually the foundation for anything that comes. So even I heard good parents that are very rich, they would send their children to wash pots just to build that character, so they don't take it for granted what they inherit, and they know what it takes.
Yeah, according to the Vedic, character is much more important than actual ability to lead.
Yeah, so I think when Prabhupada talks about this, it's always in that perspective. Let's not be just concerned about that, but be concerned about good character, developing good character, because from there, everything will be solid.
Also, according to the Vedic government, the very first function of the Vedic government is to make sure everybody's properly engaged in a work that's appropriate for them, and that they have food, clothing, and shelter. I took a course in U.S. national government almost 30 years ago now, and only 25% of the people polled thought that should be a function of the government at all. It's probably much less than that now. That's actually the first most important function of a government, is to make sure everyone is properly engaged and has food, clothing, and shelter. And my brother had this big, thick book on Catholicism, and it said the same thing in there. Brandon just explained, it turned me on to a new word, woke. I don't know, maybe he could explain it better than I can, but yeah, definitely. Yeah, convenient.
I'm thinking also another aspect of it, when we are in a society which is very large, then when they say you have a small village, and I would say Kṛṣṇa has a small village, then everybody has to do anything to survive. And when you have 100 people, then you can separate, who needs to do this and that, for example, somebody is an artist by nature, and that's the best way to engage themselves, But if there is only 10 people, and we need to cook, we need to clean, and we need to do other things, so sometimes according to the capacity of the society we live in, if you live in a large community, then you can be more engaged according to your nature, but otherwise you need to be in survival or do whatever is needed.
That's a good point.
I just was also thinking about the end of this purport, 7-11 that you mentioned earlier. And I was thinking about, it seems that, Srila Prabhupada was instructing us in our own small society to be the example which would lead to that change. He's saying at the end of that purport that this will automatically happen. But can that automatically happen without the example of the Vaishnavas? How will it, because it seems.
Just by spreading the culture.
Well, the point I was
by kirtan and prasada.
But
that changes the heart.
If they come to the and have kirtan and prasada, they don't have a good experience in witnessing the way the society is running, then they won't be attracted to take up the practice. And so I was wondering if, it's like we were talking about evolution and how it's a farce. So we can't just expect that society will evolve spontaneously without an example.
Of course. Like David Prosta said last week, we endeavor like it's all up to us and pray like it's all up to Krishna. Prabhupada had a quote specifically for Gainesville. Do something wonderful there in Gainesville. Wonderful means chant loudly and distribute prasadam. Simply if you do enthusiastically, success will be there. So that's Krishna is God. He's in the center of every atom. The two greatest sacrifices we can perform are chanting and distributing prasadam. That's what pleases Krishna. In control. He's the autocrat, not Trump.
But should those things inspire us as Vaishnavas to, make more large cooperative organization which inspires larger society.
Sure,
I'm
of course.
saying, let's take the vision off of the secular world. Let's really put the binoculars and the magnifying glass on our Vaishnava society instead of
course.
waiting for them to all catch up.
Of course.
We need to create it first. And so, and I'm saying this because being here,
Well, I had a similar thing in when COVID was, whenever it was locked down for COVID, we're not doing anything. We don't have, we're not growing any food, And the answer I got was, well, when it becomes necessary, it's just going to happen real fast. That was the answer I got. So I don't know.
but and so this makes a great point also. We have to do it individually,
Oh, yeah.
right? We can't wait. the
Yeah,
evolution
one
to spontaneous-
heart at a time by taking prasadam and chanting.
That's surrendering, right?
Yeah.
Chanting and serving prasadam.
Yeah, those are the greatest sacrifices you can do for Krishna. Those are the two biggest things you can do. And Krishna's in the center of every atom.
Krishna ki.
Right.
I have one more comment. On Bhagavatam's point about anthropology, there's scientists will accuse religious people of not being scientific. And science says, well, it's all can be proven and scientifically proved. But the reality is, even in science, there must be a point where they take something as axiomal or as foundation that can be proven. They can't go back 10 million years and prove it to us. So they have to take some sort of faith. So they should, the honest answer is both take faith. Religion and science. Because we can prove many things from a philosophical point of view. Scientifically these days, science should be honest about it. They're taking a lot of things on faith.
Prabhupada also described devotional service as a science.
It takes more faith to believe that something can come from nothing.
Yeah. Exactly. Makes more sense to think there is a God, some intelligence behind all this.
I think she was just trying to say that we can also take practical action.
Sure.
Because it's like, okay, yeah, we can distribute prasadam and distribute the home names always,
Mhm.
forever, you know? But also if we do want to establish Varnashram, then there are also practical things we can do, like some devotee communities have done, and starting a farm, and then caring about, like actually paying attention to what the devotees of our community are good at, rather than just like.
Prabhupada was genuinely interested in every person he talked to. So Kalakanta said many times that they don't care what you know till they know that you care. So first you got to make friends, in a genuine way, not just, for some exploitation or something. Prabhupada was genuinely interested in every person he talked to. How can I engage this person in Krishna's service?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, breakfast. Okay, thank you.